Are you looking to write a novel that will stand the test of time? With millions of other titles competing, sometimes you may feel like a gladiator just competing to survive. Now, thankfully, you don't actually have to be better than every other book out there. You just need to be unforgettable. What makes a book unforgettable? Several years ago, I asked readers what factors contributed to the books that really engaged them emotionally. One of the most popular answers was characters. Characters, after all, are what give readers an emotional reason to care about the story. This leads us to our essential question. Are your characters unforgettable? I'm Dan Slam, author of God of Mana, and part of the leadership team at Story Embers, a site dedicated to helping Christian novelists write stories that endure. Here are 4 tips to help you write unforgettable characters. Strategy number 1, the riveting backstory. Writers miss raw potential when they just slap on any old backstory or ignore backstory completely. Notice that I use the term shallow backstory as opposed to cliché backstory. A cliché backstory is simply one used by many other books out there, such as a protagonist's parents dying. There's nothing intrinsically wrong with these backstories. Shallow backstories, on the other hand, exist simply to give a reason for the protagonist's motivations in the story. I would consider Jen Erso from Rogue One to have such a backstory. It's not that her backstory is bad, it's just that it's so forgettable that when I was outlining this video, about all I could remember about it was how forgettable it was. Good writers treat their backstories with as much care as they put into their climax, whether these backstories are merely inferred or shown through flashbacks. Great backstories usually contain some of the following elements. Number 1, mystery. This could be a literal mystery planted in the backstory. For instance, if the protagonist's earliest memories are of a hooded man whispering enigmatic words over them. However, backstory itself is often the mystery. In Six of Crows, the protagonist's backstory is not known by many people, and he uses this to build great legends around himself. Part of the lure of the story is figuring out what his backstory really was. The second thing great backstories often do is they show us where the protagonist has come from and how they've changed. For instance, if your character is a very hardened character, it may be powerful to go back and show how innocent they were in their childhood. Number 3, most characters are haunted by some sort of fear, which we call their ghost. When you go back and show how that ghost originated, it will really deepen your reader's understanding of what your character fears and why. Number 4, great backstories impact the present beyond providing motivation for the character. Perhaps old wounds from the backstory keep the character from functioning. Perhaps a truth he or she believed in the backstory turns out to be a lie. Perhaps clues from the backstory turn out the key to winning in the climax. We can summarize all of these points into one. Great backstories cast a long shadow over the entire story to come. Get started by investigating your character's ghost, as this is normally the cornerstone upon which you will build the rest of their backstory. Our second strategy for writing unforgettable characters is to make your character feel trapped. Which makes a better story? The boy who climbed the hill or the boy who climbed the mountain? Obviously, the boy who climbed the mountain. So it is that the most arduous character arcs are often the most unforgettable. Start with a character whose personal flaw and deepest desire are incompatible. This will make them feel caught in an inescapable dilemma. Let me tell you a story. In the novel I'm wrapping up at the time I'm recording this, the protagonist really struggled in early drafts. To simplify it, his deepest desire was for vengeance, and his personal flaw was his willingness to ignore how his actions impacted others. If you think about that, there's really no conflict there. His deepest desire and his personal flaw can easily coexist. After exploring his backstory, however, I changed his deepest desire to prove himself a man by defeating evil, and he fears evil from the depths of his soul. Now we have a delicious incompatibility. Either he loses by doing evil and becoming the very thing he fears, or he loses by letting his moral code get in the way of victory. This is being trapped. There's always a way out, but it will require a very aggressive character arc. If your character isn't pulling his weight in the story, look to see if his personal flaw and his deepest desire are at odds. If not, change that, and it may just give him enough juice to carry him through the whole story. The third strategy for making your characters unforgettable is to make them love or be loved intensely. Sometimes characters love objects, groups, or intangible things. For instance, in Tolkien's The Silmarillion, the elves have been banished from their home among the angelic Valar. Although many find happiness in the land of their exile, yet still a feeling of loss for the good and cherished things that are no more hangs over much of the story. Generally, however, great loves are between two or more characters. Hans Huberman from The Book Thief stands out as a character who loved and was loved greatly. Throughout the entire book, he puts others first, never complaining if he has to sacrifice his own comfort or even risk his life to help others, never seeking praise for what he does. Just as the protagonist, his adopted daughter, could never do without him, neither could we. Now I want you to keep in mind that love is not always a positive thing in stories. Some people love the wrong things, or they love the right things, but they try to obtain them the wrong way. Characters who love or are loved deeply will exhibit at least a few of these qualities. 1, they make great sacrifices for the things or people they love. 2, they assume the best of the people they love and avoid petty squabbles. 3, they have a deep fear of losing what they love. 4, they show unwavering commitment to their love. 5, they have a willingness to open up to those they love about sensitive issues. And 6, the relationship never stagnates, but always grows deeper and deeper. Readers can only care as much as the character cares. Characters who exhibit these qualities will generally leave a profound impression on the reader. Our final strategy is to replace character info dumps with characteristic moments. Many writers today unfortunately borrow from past techniques when it was okay to basically give a resume of your character when you introduce them, because authors wrote in a very conversational, omniscient tone. Many writers still use this resume approach, only instead of using narration to convey the character resume, they essentially have the character just talk to the reader about themselves. The character will share who they are, how they feel, and why they do what they do in detail. This is called telling, and while it may have had its use in the past, by today's trends and standards, it's generally looked down upon, which is why it's recommended you show instead. The best way to show what your character is like is to use characteristic moments. Generally, writers refer to the first chapter or first scene where you introduce your character as their characteristic moment. If they're a warrior, you might show them in battle. If they feel unloved, you show them coping. If they're impulsive, you show them jumping from thing to thing to thing. However it's normal for them to act, you show them acting that way and just leave it implied that that's the way they normally are. Most writers are familiar with and pretty good at writing characteristic moments in the first chapter. But inexplicably, they change back to telling after that first chapter. It's time to rethink the way we view characteristic moments. Every chapter, your character has changed, so it's an opportunity to show a characteristic moment of the new them. If you struggle with writing characteristic moments, here's my challenge for you. Take your character's deepest desire, their personal flaw, their role and place in the story, one key characteristic about their personality, and one big problem they're facing, and put them on a mission that will illustrate all 5 of those points. I hope these strategies will help you write a character that will be remembered for centuries. However, if that's your goal, you're going to want a little more than these 4 strategies. There are so many more important aspects of characterization we just weren't able to cover today, like what their worldview is, their personality, how they handle emotion, and so much more. So, if you want to go one step further, check out our Ultimate Character Questionnaire. In this free download, you'll find over 30 detailed, targeted questions to help you flesh out a truly unforgettable character. Unlike many character questionnaires, which really focus on peripheral details, this character questionnaire goes in deep into the heart of your character. Check the link below, grab that download, and have fun bringing your character to life.